me, Ali Akbarian, your resident road safety expert from Mobility Engineering, back again for another Q&A. Thank you very much for sending in those questions. We love them, keep them coming. And as we always say with our trusty subscribe pillow, please hit the button that looks a bit like this pillow down there somewhere. Please show us some love. We'd love to get to 1,000 subscribers and we'll do something special for that with the pillow. So please hit that button. Now to today's question. So today's question is basically a small statured person traveling in the front seat. Do I disconnect the airbag? So basically the question is, do we disconnect the airbags for small statured people? I'll give you the sort of the context behind it because it's important, particularly for our therapists out there that want to know a bit more info on it. Basically what we've got is a 17-year-old child that is the size of a 10 or 11-year-old, right? So which is a common situation in this industry. Now, and they're wondering, we want to put this kid in the front seat because we've already got the back seat full and we've got some bits and pieces in there and we basically can't afford another car. And they need a swivel seat as well. So they're going to be sitting in the front seat in the swivel seat because the back seat can't accommodate the swivel seat in their particular car. And they want to know sort of what's the rules, what should they do, and which is a very common question which I get asked, should we disconnect the airbag, right? And I wanted to cover that in this video because it is a common question and there's a huge misconception about disconnecting airbags. So the first thing I'll do though is we'll talk about the rules for the front seat. So the rules for the front seat that say that in the front of the car, a child under 12 must not sit in the front. So if you are, under 8 must not sit in the front, but we don't recommend under 12 because if you look at the guidelines from the car, there's always an airbag warning that says under 12, don't sit there, but legally under 8 you're not allowed. So from 8 to 12, technically you're allowed, but you really shouldn't because there is a big warning in the car saying do not sit in the front if you're under 12, right? So there is a bit of allowance there, but don't sit there under 12, right? Really, that's what you should be following as a guideline. Now with this particular occupant who's 17, legally, they can sit in the front, and even following that guideline, which says under 12 don't sit there, they can legally sit there. So what do? Well, we would still recommend in general sitting in the back. Now in general, for everybody, this is for adults and children, the back seat is the safest place to travel. So I know sometimes it's more, feels more comfortable being in the front because you can see more of the view, but from a safety point of view, you are the furthest away from all impacts in the middle of the car because you're the furthest away from the back and you're the furthest away from the front. So you are the most protected when you sit in the back. So adults and kids, always better. Number one priority is always in the back. Now, if we don't have the choice, so if we can't afford a new vehicle, so for example, if the swivel seat can't fit in the back because of their car and they can't afford to buy a new vehicle, well, they're kind of stuck with the front, right? So what do they do there? So in their case, they don't really need to do too much other than try to avoid impact with the airbag. So that doesn't mean disconnect the airbag, by the way, and I'll explain that in a minute. But basically what we want to do is not have full impact with the airbag because we're smaller in frame and the airbag does explode quite hard, basically. We want to try and move our front seat as far back as possible so we are as far away from that airbag as possible. Now, the question of do I disconnect my airbag then? Because I guess a natural follow-up question to the comment that I just made would be, or a point is, well, you just said the airbag, we don't want to impact that airbag, so what if we just remove the airbag? Removing the airbag is an absolute no-no. Do not ever remove an airbag. Removing an airbag is less safe than a non-airbag vehicle. If it was more safe than a non-airbag vehicle, then we wouldn't have airbags there. It's not about whether the airbag is safe, it's whether or not, and also, taking a step back, let's say I did disconnect the airbag. Let's actually show you this car here, right? So I have a car here that has a large bit of metal here, right? There is quite a hard bit of plastic there, quite a very hard bit of plastic there, right? So if I disconnect the airbag, that's what I'm going to hit. And that's going to be much, much worse than hitting an airbag, which is a big bag full of air. You know, so whilst it does come out at you quite fast, it's going to be much better than you going into this that fast, if that makes sense. So we do not want our heads to impact this surface. That's why airbags came out, because the old cars, people were hitting their heads into this surface and causing really serious injuries or deaths. So under no circumstance ever disconnect an airbag. It is much less safe to have no airbag than an airbag, but it's important to know how to use an airbag and how to work with an airbag. So if I'm smaller, I don't want to have the full force of the airbag, so I'll pull myself a little bit further back and as far back as possible so I don't have that full impact, because that's just better safety for me, you know. And but removing the airbag, that's going to be a massive downgrade in safety, and it's also illegal as well. All right, so hopefully that helps with small statured people in the front seats and disabling the airbag. Thank you very much, as always, for sending in the questions. As we always say, hit that subscribe button down there. We'd love your support to get us to that 1,000 subscriber mark, and we'll see you next time.